The first gaming experience I ever had was with this. A plug-and-play collection of 4 Sonic games. 1, 2, Spinball, and Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Hours upon hours I spent both with my cousin and by myself chipping away at this thing. I was 5 years old, and there would be no going back. Video games quickly cemented themselves as a vital part of my life. I wonder, what was it about these 4 titles that captivated me so thoroughly? Well, purely on a surface level, this awesome blue cartoon character went fast as hell and lived in a world of seemingly never-ending intrigue. It was like nothing I had ever seen in cartoons on TV. Unique, fresh, and alien. Almost like forbidden fruit. No one at school talked about Sonic. They had no clue who he was, not until Smash Bros. Brawl came out. And of course, Sonic cartoons existed, but I didn't know any of that at the time. And hell, those shows, at least in my opinion, never quite captured the same feel that this did. The common atmosphere and artistic spirit of these 4 games. This magic that can only be achieved through the interactive medium. This is Sonic! Or is this Sonic? Or this? Or this? Or maybe this? And despite my distaste, the cartoons are irrefutably still Sonic, so... Let's unpack this. Sonic, in his simplest form, is the brainchild of Japanese developers. But you could be forgiven for not knowing this, given how the brand is marketed. From the get-go, the blue Hedgehog was to be the poster boy of an aggressive anti-Nintendo radical ad campaign for Sega and their Mega Drive Genesis. At least in the West. American staff put in work to shape this beautifully simple Japanese fiction into 90s Americana the Hedgehog. Overly convoluted backstories, more spikes, making him a generic Saturday morning cartoon. It was like what you saw at the time with terrible Western box art, only on a much larger scale, extending into a good amount of official media. Imagine if Milli Vanilli showed up in Mario Odyssey instead of Pauline. Western and Japanese Sonic quickly became 2 distinct characters, and honestly, I think you could make a case for pure Japanese Sonic's last hurrah being Sonic CD, only the 3rd mainline game. Sonic hit the ground running with his American identity, and I'd say from CD on, it's either Yankee all the way, a balance of some kind, or Japanese developers fighting against their sensibilities to cater to a Western audience. Because that is their audience. Japanese consumers on the whole don't really care. It's bizarre and not quite like any other property I know of. Obviously, you don't have to be Japanese to make what I consider to be a good Sonic game. To suggest so would be idiotic, narrow-minded, and incorrect. I'm saying Sonic originally had an infallible proof of concept, but over the years, it would gradually be lost on the people at Sega and Sonic Team. Believe it or not, you can stay true to your original vision and theming, expanding it along the way while still capturing a worldwide audience. Plenty of games do this masterfully, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. And no, I don't necessarily hate the direction Sonic went in, at least not on paper. Just bear with me and I'll explain myself, but first I want to get into why these 4 titles resonated so much with me personally. Sonic 1. This was the one we played the least. We had our fun with it, but the 3 acts in every zone kind of drove our baby brains mad. Felt never-ending. I don't know what it was about the first Eggman boss, but it was excruciatingly hard for us. We never made it past Marble Zone. But even before I knew how popular Green Hill's theme was, I vibed with that shit hard. 5-year-old me just subconsciously knew how iconic this whole deal was. Goddamn beautiful 16-bit world. I love pixel and low poly games cause your imagination puts in work. It's like the perfect middle ground between reading a novel and playing a modern day AAA game. It's pure magic. On my walk to elementary school every day, there was a long stretch of lawn with some cool aesthetics surrounding it that I called Green Hill Zone. I never projected much film or TV into the real world, but games? So much free real estate to work with. You're so much more personally involved in these worlds, so it feels like they are your world. Okay, that was just a mini rant about my childhood love for games in general, because I don't have a whole lot to say about Sonic 1, honestly. Great first step, playful, expressive, has the right amount of attitude, simple in design and concepts, it has an identity. This is Sonic. Sonic 2, the beginning of my obsession with platformers. I'll be upfront. we never made it very far in this one either. We'd always drown in Aquatic Ruin Act 1. If we weren't drowning in Chemical Plant Act 2. This platform? This was incomprehensible to me. Rocket science! The bane of our existence! But unlike Sonic 1, which we didn't enjoy playing over and over too much, this was a different story. Maybe it was the more polished graphics, the insanely good music, the corkscrews, the spin dash, the aesthetic of Chemical Plant, the weird fox kid following us, the 2x in every zone, and for us, easier boss fights. Whatever the case, this was dynamite compared to 1. Loved it through and through. This is a sequel, polishing Sonic's simplicity to a gorgeous sheen. I'll admit that I don't really enjoy these games as an adult that much. I find the controls and general design to be kind of baffling, but obviously that doesn't mean I dislike these games in the slightest. They know what they want to do and they do it. And these games enthralled kids and adults alike to no end. I mean, Sonic 2's sense of speed is absolutely ridiculous. Even though the really fast sections were basically on autopilot, you just can't put into words how empowering this felt to a little bab. Long story short, factories and bad guys who want to destroy nature or whatever were commonplace. The image of a fast-as-hell cartoon animal with attitude racing through a very elaborate outdoor factory, destroying robots and freeing animals trapped inside while on his way to stick it to the man? Oh, and by the way, you are that cartoon animal? Legendary. Sonic Spinball. This was my favorite of the bunch, and also the only one I was able to beat on my own. Toxic Caves was my favorite level in this whole collection. The labyrinthian and dank 90s as hell aesthetic, alternate paths that open up as you progress, the fact that you had to intentionally fall here and then paddle this oil drum through the acid to reach a Chaos Emerald? Took us a while to figure that one out. What about how the scariest thing you've ever seen is constantly looming above you, and when you cross paths with it, that godforsaken music sends shivers down your spine? And I'd be remiss to not mention those Genesis sound effects. I know they're technically shit or whatever, but man, if they don't hit hard. You really felt the danger in this game, you know? Of course it's Spinball, so there's a lot of luck and trial and error, but we didn't care as kids. We had all the time in the world to mess around. But yeah, in just the first level, there are hazards every which way. Sonic 1 and 2 felt like we were beating increasingly hard levels in a video game. This felt like we were going through ordeal after ordeal just to clear a single level. With our level of skill, we really felt senses of progression at perfectly spaced intervals. It kept us thoroughly engaged as we underwent all these, at the time, daunting trials to climb up this horrifically intimidating evil lair. It was an epic quest by way of extreme pinball, and we loved every juicy, crunchy second of it. This game is no longer enjoyable to be in the slightest, but I don't care, I still adore it! Mean Bean Machine. I love this one, and I might have loved it more than Spinball if I was any good at it. This is easily the best of the bunch to play as an adult, but that's just because Puyo Puyo is a perfect puzzle game. So, I sucked and could barely get past Humpty, who was the third boss, but my cousin was an absolute god at it. He's no joke like a math, science, and technology genius prodigy, so a brainy game like this was no problem for him. The later levels were a bit of a struggle, but that made it all the more gratifying for the both of us when he did manage to beat the thing. I, to this day, love it when a game is based around a series of bosses or whatever that get progressively harder and more intimidating as you progress. It puts a face to the idea of difficulty scaling and really personalizes it. And what faces they are! These simple designs, animations, and personalities are everything. You must be this person to continue on to the next stronger person. Simple and effective. Even things like changes to the music as the game progressed contributed to this feeling magnificently. If you can make a smarmy robot chicken the most threatening boss, you're doing something right. And can I just mention once again, the music and sound design, it's perfect. Music on point, sound design elevates everything. Your yippies feel like you just did a line, and your enemies' yee-haws represent the obliteration of your soul in sound form. There was wall-to-wall personality here. And man, can I just say, passwords are a lost art today. Obviously they're super annoying and impractical and saving is better in every way, but dude! I remember how fun and satisfying it was to take our little pencil crayons and color whatever symbols were needed for whatever password on a sheet of paper. When you're a kid, you rarely if ever feel like you have any kind of agency when it comes to manipulating systems and stuff, so this is a very precious memory for me. I only wish that paper was still around. But yes, the world of Sonic as portrayed by these 4 games painted for me a diverse yet consistent picture of what this series represented. Colorful, bombastic, aesthetically rich, a bit edgy, and firmly rooted in a fantastical animal world under threat by a mad scientist and his robots. Cool beans. And again, Spinball was American developed and Mean Bean was based on Pingers, but they both still capture that original Sonic spirit. So please, please don't think I'm saying Western developer bad, because the Japanese made Sonic Adventure. I promise I don't think all green-eyed Sonic games are inherently worthless or anything, but I'm not about to pull my punches. I do have just as much nostalgia for this era of Sonic as I do for the first 4 games I played, so I'd like to think there's no bias here, because I genuinely used to call myself a Sonic fan, like 7 years ago. But anyway, this is dumb and we would never fully recover. The Sonic brand is the distilled essence of It's Not a Phase Mom grafted onto lines of code. Butt rock. Sparingly, this totally works for Sonic. Live and Learn is a godly piece of writing and the only Crush 40 song that isn't embarrassing to sing because the lyrics are actually well thought out and coherent. Sorry. Unpopular opinion, but things like Sonic 06, Unleashed, Colors, and especially Lost World sound like real natural evolutions for the classic Sonic sound. Adventure's music is great, but personally the more electronic tracks don't evoke Sonic for me. It's just not the sound I would have chosen, but it's awesome if you disagree. This subtle shift in series direction though would undoubtedly usher in a multitude of changes to the design that would change Sonic forever. For better or worse. Well now, this isn't what I think necessarily, but the excessive and unironic use of butt rock in this era seems to be at least a small contributing factor to why Sonic is largely considered a joke these days. It's really frustrating to me that this once proud household juggernaut gradually morphed into a glorified meme. There's nothing wrong with doing outlandish things or having this style of music be present, but there has to be some level of self-awareness there for anyone to take you seriously. Talking about Mario Odyssey again, that game has photorealistic people in a populated urban city and a giant reptilian beast, but there, it's freaking awesome because the game knows how ridiculous it is. Mario's on a wacky journey that takes him all around his world. You see all kinds of things in this game. It's like a massive collage of different ideas, locales, characters, and art styles. It's a sensory feast for the player, and we relish the absurdity of some of it. Sonic Adventure and its sequels contemporaries, Mario 64, Sunshine, Crash, Spyro, Ratchet & Clank, Jak and Daxter. These games, wacky platformers, all of them, are looked upon with reverence and respect. But the Sonic Adventures? Unless you're a Sonic fan, putting these titles on the same level as the ones just mentioned will unfortunately have you laughed out of every other snobbish gaming circle. And I wish that wasn't the case. But why is it the case? Well, I have no concrete evidence for this, but just hear me out. The Adventure era is around when I feel Japanese Sonic Team forgot what made this property so special in the first place. By Adventure 2, it's for all intents and purposes a Western IP. The franchise becomes this bizarre half-assed yet still beloved amalgamation of Japanese whimsy and 2000s Western mascot platformer, and shooter and hyper edgy and fantasy epic and Arabian Nights and fishing! Comes off like Sonic Team and Sega don't know why people even like Sonic anymore. The series isn't evolving, it's lost sight of itself. Jumped the shark and is imitating the evolution of other things that actually know what they're doing. Sonic at this point is everything and nothing. Skating through San Francisco while the feds pursue you? Hell yeah, that's a metal first level idea. But, oh, then we see the feds and hear them speak and they're all realistic and this story has the president in it and takes itself seriously and ultimate life form and dead girl. The whole story is fan fiction. This is no one's creative vision. The most soulful thing in this game is the Chow Kindergarten Black Market that's amazing! Do you think we wanted to see the people working in those buildings in the background of Chemical Plant? Do you think we want to see them turn in a terrible voiceover performance to further a plot about Dr. Eggman talking to ostensibly the American president? No. Chemical Plant was cool because we didn't see any of that shit. We were a hedgehog on a mission, damn it. We didn't have time for innocuous background details. You're expanding the wrong elements. Sonic is not designed to carry a story of this nature on his back. You can go dark, sure. I was a little excited when I saw the first 5 seconds of the Sonic Forces trailer. Eggman wins, our characters have to take back the world. Awesome! But, oh, then classic Sonic and OC and god-awful music and out-of-place looking OP weapons, and the game plays itself and Happy Tree Friend's low-stakes, tone-deaf dad Sonic writing that has plagued all these 2010s games. He's being tortured for months. That's stupid and probably way too dark for a children's game unless you can deliver. You did the opposite of deliver. There's no conflict here, and it's mind-numbingly boring. You know, there exists a happy medium between mindless, unprofessional, who-cares fanfiction and doesn't have the balls to be serious but pretends to be. Sonic Unleashed came the closest to striking this balance tonally, but narratively it just felt pretty meandering and uninteresting. Sonic and Chip could have carried a story, just the two of them, if the writing was better, but as things stand, it's just bland. And the Werehog was a thing. Honestly, it could have worked, it was just executed rather poorly. And that's the thesis statement for most of these games except the ones that are so conceptually dumb it's not even funny anymore. Do the people working on these games actually feel passionate about them, I wonder? I would love to know. You know, it's just great when you're playing a level and you grab onto one of those red cable things that lift you up, originally conceived as part of industrial type environments, but for the longest time have just been assets to be plastered onto levels without any thought. Like a kid making a Mario Maker level. Same with the hideous dash pads, the bumpers, and floating grind rails and all of that. They stick out like sore thumbs. In the originals, the worlds were wacky and intentionally perpetuated a juxtaposition of nature and technology. The pointy plant life and checkpoints and all that look almost like a melding of artificial and natural, you know? All these designs are really simple too. But this stuff is way too detailed looking and should not be hanging out willy-nilly in residential Santorini. The more specific you make these cartoony things appear, the more they're bound to look out of place in more than one setting. Level aesthetics that actually feel like they're a genuine part of the world do wonders for a platformer. No, for any game. Not having the sense that you're there in the world, especially in a platformer where your relationship to the world around you is the whole point, it's the nail in the coffin, man. Colors, Lost World, and some parts of Generations didn't have this problem quite as bad as others, but man, this kind of stuff really makes you feel the apathy from the creator's side. Giving these characters voices and dialogue too, I mean, just had so much potential. Definitely wasn't doomed to fail, but when bad and subpar performances were the standard for 10 years, not to mention the dialogue, it's no wonder outsiders view this whole deal as a big joke with a cringy fandom. Oh, and I guess the fact that most of these games aside from Mania are miserable to play might also have something to do with that. The Boost games were a step in kind of the right direction, but then Forces ruined everything, and God knows what this next game is gonna be like, with its realistic forest and Celtic bullshit. I don't know, is that Celtic? I'm not a master historian. This character in this world is a mess. Every Sonic fan wants him to be their favorite version of the character, and yet Sonic Team tries to placate everyone at once all the time. Decades of history have collapsed in on themselves, spawning this. With all the directionless and gimmickiness of the late 2000s through the 2010s, the misguided self-seriousness of the early to mid-2000s, and classic Sonic popping in once in a while to be the cutesy smiley mascot he never was. Also a god-awful movie that everyone loved because it was less shit than what Sonic fans are used to. God help us. The pieces of media I tend to harbor the most distaste towards are the ones that squander the seemingly infinite potential they possess. I was once a fan of this series because technical proficiency, good storytelling, and context are nebulous concepts at best to a child. I saw Sonic for what the series purported to be, what it was on paper. Professionals must know what they're doing. Even if it seems a little weird to me at first, this all must be what the series was meant to be. I would watch the Sonic 06 cutscenes on YouTube all the time as a young bab, and would sit transfixed. I didn't even know what the game was. There was just this mystique about it, because the videos I watched were simply titled Sonic Story, Shadow Story, and Silver Story. There was a dramatic narrative featuring these characters I liked from video games and TV, with a bunch of new faces too. How cool to plop these cartoon characters into a fantasy epic! None of the glaring problems were at all apparent to me. I was like 9. The atmosphere was unlike anything I'd felt before either. The weirdly spaced dialogue and consistent lack of music, as well as the incessant repetition of certain tracks. When Mephiles would stare into the camera and his theme would start playing, oh man, move over Kurosawa, Sonic Team has something to say. Much of this was likely unintentional, but do you think I knew that? This was wholly unique to me and unlike anything else I had ever seen from the series, and therein lies the appeal for the overall franchise in its current form, I think. Same reason as why I latched onto Sonic at a young age. It was different. It marketed itself as being different. Sonic is unlike any other property I've engaged with, and the fact is, he's not what he was 30 years ago, no matter how much I would love that to be so. But Sonic does have a distinct identity. It can be found in the chaos. Light-hearted, janky nonsense, ridiculous melodrama, white dad writing, guns, Arabian Nights, fishing. Sonic is all of this and more. And despite my whining, I think that's okay. The series still sells. In fact, it was given a bit of a mainstream resurgence with the release of the film, and to a lesser extent the relative high quality of Mania. People love Sonic. And I'm not the type to despise the series or fanbase if no harm is being done. I'd like to think I've made peace with the fact that Sonic is not for me. I so wish he was, but that's just not the way things have played out. Who knows though? They might just surprise me someday. So to answer my own question, Sonic is this, and this, and this, and even this. I'd love to hear your own stories about the first Sonic games you played and why they grabbed you. Tell me all about the things you loved about them, the memories you made, and maybe even how the games have inspired you. I would genuinely love to know all of your perspectives. Might help me learn to appreciate certain things I hadn't previously. Thanks for watching.